Self-love is a buzzword that we hear so often, but from observation, a lot of people only practice it in very surface level ways. It's all about telling yourself you're confident even when you don't feel like it, or getting expensive beauty treatments. But self love goes so much deeper. At least impactful self love goes so much deeper than that. Welcome to my channel. My name is Alasia, and on this channel, I talk about self love and self care. So, here are 10 self love principles that all women should live by so that you can start getting the benefits from self love in all the ways that you can. Number one is to take accountability for your shortcomings. A lot of time when we hear about self-love, it's all about, really encouraging yourself, positive affirmations, telling yourself all the good things about you. And that's an important part of self-care. I do agree with that. But I don't hear a lot of people often talking about the accountability side of self-care, where you are holding yourself accountable when you are doing wrong things, or at least you're attempting to reflect and figure out in what areas of your life are you going wrong, and in what areas of your life are you falling short. Yes, self-love is all about building yourself up, but sometimes you can build yourself up after reflecting on where you're going wrong so that you can improve on those things. Accountability is a really hard thing to do, right? Because you're essentially acknowledging that you're not perfect and that you have flaws, or that you struggle in some areas and that you have certain weaknesses. But you shouldn't fear accountability. You should run towards accountability, because a lot of people really struggle with this. They maybe are okay with accountability when other people are involved and they can't hide from it. For example, there's consequences to your actions and they're like, okay, whether or not I choose to accept this, I have to hold myself accountable because everyone else knows what I'm doing wrong. But what if other people do not know what you're doing? Or what if other people are not aware of some of the struggles and weaknesses that you're having? Are you going to be able to really hold yourself accountable? Are you going to be able to have that honest conversation with yourself and say, hey, you know what, this is an area where I'm not strong in? And accountability is so important because you can't improve if you don't accept the reality of what's going on in your life. You can't improve if you're living in what they call Delulu land, right? Where you're in La La land and you think that you're perfect, or you think that your shortcomings aren't as bad as they are. Sometimes what can help with this is having honest people in your life. Now, I don't agree with getting or feedback from just any and everyone. Really ask yourself if there's anyone in your life who you trust and you respect who can give you honest feedback about yourself, because a lot of times we have blind spots and we can't see certain things about ourselves. Also, a therapist can be good with this too. Depending on the therapist, some are not going to be that honest with you, but some can give you feedback on some areas where you can improve, or where your thinking is having some issues, or anything like that, where they can kind of point out some areas where you can grow. And we all have areas of growth, but by holding yourself accountable, you are being a grown adult woman. By holding yourself accountable, you are saying, hey, I'm not perfect and I make mistakes, but you know what? I'm owning up to them and I am going to work on improving them. Because what's the point of having self-love, this idea of self-love, if you have all these areas that are negatively impacting your life and your relationships? So that's why I started off with this one, because it's not talked about enough. That accountability is next level self-improvement, because once you start holding yourself accountable, you can actually grow from those areas of your life. So that's number one. The second self-love principle is to be your biggest cheerleader, not your biggest critic. And so I'm following up the point about accountability with this, because you need to have accountability first before you just start cheering yourself on, because you could be cheering things on that you shouldn't be cheering on. You could have these traits that you perceive to be positive, but once you do some reflecting, you might realize that they're not. But on the same token, after accepting accountability for all the areas that you can grow in, it's important to celebrate yourself for the things that you do well, and also to not be too critical of yourself, because none of us are perfect and we all have areas to grow in. So it's important to celebrate yourself when you do well. It's important to cheer yourself on when you're trying, and to always be your biggest encourager. You don't want to be waiting on other people to give you validation and waiting on other people to celebrate you for things that you can celebrate yourself for. Because a lot of times, some people are not even as excited about the things that we are excited about. And it can be disappointing to share something with someone that you find really exciting and them not even have the reaction that you really want because it's just more important to you. And all of us are just in our own minds and thinking about our own stuff. So it's just really important for you to be able to show up for yourself at every stage of your journey, whether you're really far away from where you want to be or whether you just hit the finish line. Always be your biggest cheerleader and always be encouraging yourself when you're struggling. And you don't want to be too critical of yourself because we all have areas that we can work on. It doesn't help us if we're hyper fixating on all of our weaknesses and we're hyper fixating on all the ways that we're not where we want to be. So be your biggest cheerleader, but don't be too critical of yourself. And you can do this by first holding yourself accountable and then going to cheer yourself on when you're working on the areas that you need to work on and when you're taking steps to grow in your areas of weakness. Principle number 3 is do not overextend yourself. We all have a limited capacity and there's only so much we can take on before we're not feeling mentally okay and sometimes not physically okay. We can drive ourselves to a point of exhaustion. And if you've ever experienced burnout before, you know exactly what that feels like. It's very discouraging to go through and it's very hard to recover from. Burnout can even lead to depression. So burnout is basically when you feel like you have nothing left to give. You have no more gas in your tank and you just have all the life sucked out of you. And a lot of times what leads to burnout is people overcommitting and overextending themselves. Yes, sometimes we're going to go through life where we're going to have to, or go through periods of life where we're going to have to really hustle and we have a lot of commitments that we have to take care of, and that can really take a lot out of us. But a lot of times people are overextending themselves and they're choosing to commit to things that they have no business committing to. For example, you have to always consider your schedule. Like practically in a week, how much can you really do? And if something doesn't make sense for your schedule, if it doesn't make sense for, how much time you're going to have to spend committing to that thing when you have so many other things to commit to, just don't do it. Or if something is just something you really hate doing and you don't have to do it, don't do it. If something is connected to someone who really drains your energy and someone who you do not vibe with, who's just going to suck the energy out of you, also don't do it. Don't overextend yourself in any ways because that takes away from your ability to take care of yourself. It takes away from your ability to focus on your goals because your energy is being taken from all these different commitments and a lot of them you don't have to do. And sometimes things sound good. Things sound like a good opportunity. But if it doesn't make sense, again, don't do it. Just because it sounds good doesn't mean it is good for you. And a lot of times nowadays we hear this talk about hustling and working hard and we all have the same 24 hours in a day, so make the most of it. But how much is that really going to benefit you? How much is it going to benefit you to work yourself into you have nothing left to give? If you want to sustain your mental health long term, if you want to be able to work on your goals long term, you really have to preserve your energy and you have to take care of yourself in a way to where you're getting enough sleep, where you're resting, you're recharging, where you're also enjoying life and you're not getting the energy sucked out of you, because otherwise you're not going to be an effective person. So do not overextend yourself. Principle number 4 is to create systems that support your goals. So what do systems do? Systems, just like in any business, they are processes that help things run smoothly. They're processes that help things run more efficiently and processes that make sure things get done properly. And so when you have systems in your life, when you have routines and protocols in your life to help you get to where you want to be, everything is going to go much smoother than if you're just winging it and just doing one thing one day and doing another thing another day. For example, an example of a system is just having your schedule written out. Like what schedule works the best for you? What workout schedule works the best for you? What meal prepping routine works the best for you? Like what systems can you put in place in your week to help you achieve your goals? On Sunday, you might do your meal prepping. On Monday, you might have a certain workout. Tuesday, you might rest. Thursday, you might work out again. Like, just know what your schedule is going to be. But on a daily basis, systems look like what routines do you have in place? And so morning routines have been really popular on YouTube for a while. And one of the things about morning routines that I hope people realize is that a lot of people's morning routines are not realistic for either the average person or for just you. Like, you might look at someone else's morning routine and think they're being so productive, but that routine may not work for you. So it's really important for you to know and test out what works for you. And you can do that by trying different things, by asking yourself, what is my biggest priority? What is my goal? And reverse engineering, like, what routine on a daily basis do I need to go through in order to reach that goal? And so, for example, maybe reading in the morning doesn't make sense for you. Even if it sounds good or it sounds like a positive habit to have, maybe that routine doesn't make sense for you to be reading in the morning. Maybe you only have 30 minutes to get ready, and you have to make sure that the things you do in that 30 minutes are all things that are going to propel you to getting out of the door. Maybe in your evening routine, it doesn't make sense to make a full big meal. Maybe you need to prepare something ahead of time so that you can just put it in the microwave and focus on other routines that you have, like working on your book or even just resting, because maybe your job is very exhausting, and in order for you to get to where you want to be, you need to rest so that you can work on your book on the weekends. So you just need to make sure that your routine supports your mental well-being, it supports your goals, it is reinforcing the habits that you need to achieve your goals, making sure that it's working for you. So focus on creating systems and not just running towards your goals blindly, but how can you create a routine on a daily basis and create a schedule that makes sense for you, that makes things efficient, productive, and just work for you. Principle number 5 is to prioritize rest and recharging. And so, like I said earlier, we have a limited capacity, and just like overextending yourself with commitments can lead you to burnout. Also, not getting proper rest and not resting enough can lead to burnout. And of course, it's most important to get your quality sleep, just making sure you have a routine that sets you up to getting a great amount of rest, making sure that you're sleeping more and you're not staying up late, or you're not waking up early just for the sake of waking up early. Like, if you can sleep in a little bit more just to make sure you're getting quality rest, do that, because I know it's been really popular in the past few years to try to wake up as early as possible to get as much done as possible, but sleep is most important. And so if you're doing that and you're sacrificing your sleep, that can end up having negative consequences and end up making you feel more drained during the day, can end up leading you to burnout because you're waking up too early. And so it's important to do what works for you. And if waking up super early really supports your goals and you still feel well rested, do that. But if it doesn't and you're just waking up early for the sake of waking up early, don't do that. Sleep is so much more important, and getting quality rest and recharging is so much more important. It's so important to make sure that you have structured rest on the weekends. So maybe you don't have enough time to do everything on your to-do list because you still need to schedule in time to rest. I know a lot of times we cram a lot of things on Saturday and Sunday because we didn't have time to do it during the week. However, you also need to schedule in rest. You also need to make time to recharge. So not everything is going to get done, and that's okay as long as you get the most important things done. And as long as you make some progress towards the things you need to get done, that is good enough. This also includes taking breaks when you need to, not trying to work for hours on end without taking breaks, making sure you're scheduling in those breaks if you're someone who struggles to take breaks. This also means not staying out too late. Like, if you are hanging out with friends or you're at an event, you can leave. Like, you don't have to stay till the very end, and you also don't have to wait until everyone else leaves before you can leave. Like, you have to prioritize your rest, your self-care, so that you can sustain yourself long term and that you can have a quality life, you can have sustained energy and good mental health. Principle number 6 is do not engage with toxic people. Now, we've all encountered toxic people in our lives, and they can be energy vampires. They can drain and suck the life out of us. So it's really important for you not to engage with them. Sometimes we have no choice but to interact with them from time to time. However, you do not have to get stuck in the web that they're spinning and find yourself trapped and engaging with someone who you have no business engaging with, at least if you care about your mental health and well-being. It's so important that when you see people being toxic, you allow them to be who they are, maybe set boundaries, but a lot of times people are still going to do what they want to do, whether you set boundaries with them or not. But sometimes the biggest boundary that you can have is to not engage with them. So if they start saying something really off to you or something really disrespectful, or if they just start acting weird, Let them do what they do. You don't have to engage with them. You don't have to involve yourself in their madness. You don't have to involve yourself in their dysfunction. You only have control over yourself. So you don't need to focus on trying to manage their behavior, but manage your own behavior and don't engage with them, because a lot of times you keep them going and then you end up feeling more frustrated, and that affects your mood, and then you go home angry and you go to sleep angry, or maybe you're irritated for the rest of the day. So just don't engage with them. So there's people who are toxic, right? But then there's people who maybe they're toxic from time to time. Maybe they're not overall a toxic person, but they have toxic behaviors. And it's so important to be on guard when you're interacting with people, because people usually don't change. So don't hold your breath waiting for them to change. However, just know that if you're going to have certain conversations with them, or if you're going to interact with them in a certain space, just know what to expect. And so you never get disappointed. Because if you know what to expect and you go in knowing that they're going to do certain things and say certain things, you don't have a chance to get disappointed. So you can go in with more strategy. How am I going to interact with this person in this environment, knowing how they are going to behave? When you do that, you can choose not to bring up certain topics, or you can choose to ignore them when they say certain things, or you can choose to walk away from them when they start talking about certain things. You have a plan of how you're going to interact with them beforehand, so you don't get, again, caught up in the web that they spin with their toxicity, and you don't get frustrated and angry, which affects your mood and affects your day. So just try not to engage with toxic people. Let them be who they are. Set boundaries when necessary, but don't expect them to honor your boundaries because they're being toxic. And also don't expect them to change, but have control over yourself and know when to walk away, know when to be quiet, and know when to not bring up certain topics. Number 7 is stay in positive environments. So this is a good follow-up to the previous point about not engaging with toxic people, because it's really important for you to know that you have control over so much in your life. A lot of times we feel like we're at the whim of other people's environments or their behaviors, but we have control over where we put ourselves. We have control over who we surround ourselves with. So it's really important to stay in positive environments. And positive environments are not only just staying around people who are positive and who do encourage you and who have good vibes, but also staying away from people who are encouraging you to do things that are negative for you, whether it's engaging in heavy substance use, whether it's gossiping, stay in positive environments. So a lot of times where we're hanging out in our free time are not necessarily positive environments, because those people, they're not leading us to God, or they're not leading us to healthier habits, right? And so it's important to take inventory of where are you spending your time. It's important to be mindful of your environment, because that shapes who you are. It shapes your thought process, it shapes your habits, it shapes your outlook on life. And so positive environments will cultivate something that is more fruitful in your life, whether it's being at church or whether it's being just around people who take care of themselves. Those people and those environments that you allow yourself to be in, it will shape your outcomes in life. And when you're around negative environments or negative people, or just people who are not leading you closer to God, you will find yourself living a life that is so far from what you should be living, so far from your ideal version of yourself. And that is just all based on who you're surrounded by. Don't think that you are so strong and you're so individualistic that you won't be influenced by your environment. We are humans and we're social creatures, and we get influenced by the people that we're around, period. And so that's why it's important to cultivate spaces and be in spaces that are supporting your mental well-being, supporting your walk with Christ, and also just leading you to a better life and not to bad habits and bad relationships and a negative outlook on life. Principle number 8 is to gain control of your thinking. The way that you think rules your life. It shapes your emotions, it shapes your actions and behaviors. It just shapes the way that you live your life. And if your thoughts are out of control, if they are super negative, if you feel super insecure, if you feel like you have this just really doom and gloom outlook on life, like that is really going to influence how you feel. It's going to influence the way you interact with other people. It's going to influence your motivation to improve your life. So your thought process is really, really important. If you find yourself thinking things that make you feel negative or make you feel anxious or scared, that make you feel insecure, like you really have to work on your thinking. Don't just accept thoughts for the way that they are. We can change our thoughts. Thank God we can, because if our thoughts were fixed, then we would have no hope. But we can change our thoughts, and you can work on this on your own, but you can also work on this with a therapist. They can help you restructure your thoughts. But you can also work on this on your own by just taking inventory of your thoughts, writing them down, and objectively judging them. Like, are these thoughts true? Are these thoughts helpful? How are these thoughts impacting our lives? And when we become present and we realize how our thought process affects us, we can begin to gain control of that so that we have better outcomes in life, so that we feel better and that we take more positive actions. Another way that your thoughts can really rule your life is like having limiting beliefs, having reasons why you can't do what you want to do, or having excuses. And it's really important to analyze those excuses and those limiting beliefs. Are they really true? You may decide and determine that they are true, that they are truly limiting, and you may accept that. But some of them you may judge and realize that, hey, this is not really true. Maybe this is really a fixed mindset, and I can be more flexible and think in a way that is going to help me grow and is going to help me improve and actually achieve my goals, instead of thinking in a way that's limiting myself. So really gain control of your thinking. You could start by journaling, by really just analyzing what you're actually thinking, because a lot of times we don't even know what's going on in our heads. We don't even know how we're thinking until either someone points it out to us or we analyze our thoughts ourselves. Number 9, the 9th principle of self-love is to spend your money responsibly. Take control of your finances. In today's world, in America specifically, we overconsume like crazy. Especially just looking at social media and seeing all the weird things and unnecessary stuff that people are buying and all these random products that people are creating. Just spend your money responsibly. I know there's a lot of influence on social media, and it's okay to be influenced on social media to a certain extent. There's a lot of positive things on social media. There are a lot of useful products on social media that people are promoting, right? But there's a lot of unnecessary stuff that are just going to end up in landfills, that are just going to drain our bank accounts. We don't need to afterpay something unnecessary. Like, it's really important to spend your money wisely. And this is important as a grown woman, to really gain control of your finances, because I know you want to live a good life. I know you want to treat yourself, and I know you want to invest in your well-being in multiple ways. Maybe you want to go on vacation. Maybe you like beauty treatments and there's certain things that you want to do, but a lot of times we don't have the money we want to do certain things because we've overspent on things that are so unimportant and things that are so unnecessary. And so yes, some of us are really just, our income is too low to spend on things, but a lot of us are very, very blessed and we get to waste our money on a lot of unnecessary stuff. So start coming up with a budget. Everyone budgets differently, so you don't have to be super strict about it, but at least know where your money is going and know how much is going towards unnecessary stuff. Because when you start to be intentional with your money, you can start to set aside money for fun stuff. You can start to set aside money for things that you actually want. A lot of times we're unable to save money because we're mindlessly spending money and we're not really in control of our budget. So we don't know where money is going. Sometimes bills can catch us by surprise. And just know that there's always going to be unexpected expenses. There's always going to be something that just comes out of nowhere that's expensive and that hurts us inside. And you want to have money saved up to be able to take care of those things. You don't want to be totally financially stressed. And let me just say this. I know that this economy is very, very strange right now. I know that we're getting underpaid and our living expenses are just so high. I get that. So I understand that some of us are just going to have some financial struggles just because of this economy, but some of us are really overspending on things that we don't need to be spending on, and we can be saving our money for an emergency and also to be saving our money for things that we want in the future. So as a grown woman, take care of your finances. Self-love principle number 10 is to practice self-discipline. Self-discipline is so important. This can help with the money point that I just made, but this is just so important because our moods are always going to shift. Our energy levels are always going to shift. Our motivation levels are always going to shift. But if you have discipline, you can continue to do the habits and the actions that you need to do in order to move forward with your goals, regardless of how you feel. Because like I said, we're going to shift from day to day and we're going to feel differently. And if you're relying on motivation and a good mood to be able to engage in the habits that are going to help move you forward in life, you're in trouble, because you might go weeks without having any more motivation, or you might go weeks where you're just feeling like, I just want to be lazy. I don't want to do anything. I am just not interested in this right now. Or you might get bored of what you're doing. So self-discipline is an important trait to cultivate, because it is going to help you get through the ups and downs of life. It's going to help you get through the shifting motivation levels. And it's also going to help you when other people aren't encouraging you. Because if other people aren't encouraging you, or you're not getting validated from other people, how are you going to continue with what you want to do? One of my favorite quotes is from Eliud Kipchoge, who's a marathon runner. And he says that only the disciplined ones are free in life. And that quote literally had me shook when I first heard it. And I wrote it down because it's true. He went on to say that people who are not disciplined, and I'm paraphrasing, but people who are not disciplined are a slave to their moods and their passions. And what he means by that is that they're a slave to how they feel. And so most people are not self-disciplined. Like, let's just be 100% honest. And that's not a criticism of most people. I think that actually, I know that it is very hard to be disciplined, but it is something that you can work on. You don't have to just accept your natural level of discipline, because a lot of us don't have a naturally high level of discipline. Maybe in certain areas we're more disciplined, but there's certain areas like working out, eating healthy, or working on a side hustle that just take a lot more motivation to be disciplined in. And so you can cultivate that. So don't accept your natural level of discipline. Know that you can work on your level of self-discipline. And it's something that you are going to want to work on, because there's no way you're going to get to where you want to be without it. Well, I thank you for sticking till the end and listening to these 10 self-love principles that all women should live by. I want you to tell me that what was your favorite self-love principle that I went over today. And I just thank you for watching this video, and I hope to catch you in my next one.